If you follow combat sports the way some people follow royal families, you know there are moments when the spotlight quietly shifts to the next generation. In Omaha, Nebraska, that happened on the wrestling mat, not under the boxing lights. This time it wasn't Terence, but Crawford defending a world title. It was his son, Terence Crawford Jr., stepping into his own arena and walking out a state champion. And the look on the father's face said everything. At the Nebraska School Activities Association State Wrestling Championships, held inside the Chi Health Center in Omaha, the Crawford name was called in a very different context than fans are used to. No ring walks, no gloves, no ropes, just a wrestling mat, a scoreboard, and a freshman competing in the Class A 106-pound division. By the end of the tournament, Terence Crawford Jr. had captured the gold, and you could see on his father's face exactly how much that moment meant. In the Class A 106-pound final, the younger Crawford took on Grand Island's Riley Peterson. This is the kind of match where nerve alone can rattle even the most seasoned upperclassmen. Bright lights, big arena, all eyes locked on just two athletes. But instead of being overwhelmed, the freshman took complete command. He didn't just edge out a win, he dominated, earning a 13-1 decision. In wrestling terms, that's not surviving the moment, that's owning it, all through that final. Terence Crawford Sr. was in the stands, not in his usual role as a man everyone else watches, but as one father among many. Except, of course, he couldn't actually sit still. Reports from inside the arena describe him constantly on his feet, cheering every scramble, every point, every defensive stand his son made. The intensity he's famous for when the boxing ring was there, but it was focused entirely on the boy with his name, battling for a high school title on a wrestling mat. When the match ended and that 13-1 score was locked in, the emotion hit. You could see it in his expression. Pride, relief, maybe a flash of recognition that this was one of those remember this forever moments. For a man who has spent years being introduced as one of the greatest pound-for-pound boxers on the planet, seeing Terence Crawford Jr., Class A 106-pound state champion, had to land differently. This wasn't about his belts or his legacy anymore. It was about his sons. What makes this scene so powerful is the contrast. Terence Crawford is known worldwide as a ruthless technician, an undefeated multi-division champion who flips a switch when the bell rings. In his world, there's very little room for softness. Every mistake is dangerous, every round matters, and every fight is tied his name in the history books. But in that arena in Omaha, there was no massive ferocity, no need to posture. What showed on his face was something completely different. Pure, unfiltered fatherhood. When you strip away the titles and the money and the fame, this is what remains, a dad watching his child succeed on a big stage. That's why the moment resonated with so many people. It's one thing to see boxing royalty inside the ropes, doing what only a handful of humans can do. It's another thing entirely to see that same figure in the stands, shouting encouragement, riding every point as if he were the one out there, and looking like he might burst with pride when his son's hand is raised. From a sporting perspective, what Terence Crawford Jr. just did is huge in its own right. Winning a Nebraska High School State Wrestling Championship as a freshman at 106 pounds in Class A is no small feat. Those brackets are loaded with older, stronger athletes with more experience and years of mat time. For a ninth grader to cut through that level of competition and not only reach the final, but win it by a wide margin sends a pretty clear message. This is not just the son of a famous boxer. This is a serious competitor building his own resume. It's also worth remembering that wrestling is a brutally honest sport. There's nowhere to hide, no teammates to cover a bad performance. It's just you, your opponent, and the scoreboard. In that sense, there's a thread connecting father and son. Boxing and wrestling are different disciplines, but both demand the same core qualities: mental toughness, the ability to stay calm under pressure, and the willingness to suffer for every inch of advantage. Watching Crawford Jr. in that final, you could see that mindset already forming. At the same time, by choosing wrestling, he's writing his own chapter. There's always pressure when you carry the name of a global superstar, especially in the same general world of combat sports. Expectations come with it. People wonder if you'll box like your father, if you'll fight, if you'll crack under those comparisons or rise above them. By dominating in high school wrestling, Terence Jr. is carving out his own identity in a different lane, even as he carries a last name that will always draw attention. For Terence Sr., that might be one of the most rewarding parts of all this. He has spent his life fighting his way out of Omaha and onto the biggest stages a sport can offer, becoming a symbol of the city in the process. To sit in a packed arena in that same hometown and watch his son shine, not as a hanger-on or a token name, but as a legitimate champion in his own age group. That's a full-circle moment very few people get to experience. The scene inside the Chi Health Center only underscores that. This isn't a small high school gym. The Nebraska State Championships are a major event, with multiple mats running, families packed into the stands, and every match carrying stakes these kids will remember for the rest of their lives. When you win there, you're not just winning for yourself. You're winning in front of your community, your classmates, your family, and, in this case, a proud father who just happens to be a legend in his own sport. The emotional contrast is striking. Fans are used to seeing Crawford Sr.'s stone-faced at weigh-ins, locked in on fight night, sometimes bristling in press conferences when opponents talk too much. In Omaha, he wasn't that figure. He was openly emotional, visibly invested in every second of his son's match. That softer side isn't something cameras often catch when the focus is on his own fights. Here, it was front and center. In a way, this is the kind of moment people who follow royalty, dynasties, or great sporting families are always waiting for. The public confirmation that the next generation isn't just carrying the name, but carrying the standard. We've seen it in tennis families, racing dynasties, and even basketball households where kids follow parents into the league. Now we're seeing it in the Crawford family, right at the intersection of wrestling mats and boxing rings. It's important to say this clearly. Nothing that happens in high school guarantees a future in professional sports. The path from a 106-pound state title to any kind of adult stardom is long, and nobody can predict what choices Terence Crawford Jr. will make. Maybe he continues wrestling. Maybe he transitions to college competition. Maybe he crosses over into boxing later on. Maybe he chooses something completely different. He has time, and he has options. But whatever direction he takes, this moment in Omaha is locked in now. He's a freshman who just became a Nebraska state champion at 106 pounds in Class A, with a lopsided 13-1 win in the final. That result is in the books. His performance in one of the state's biggest arenas is part of his story. And the image of his father, standing in the crowd, cheering, with that unmistakable mix of joy and relief on his face, is part of ours as viewers. It also reminds us that for all the belts and pay-per-view numbers, the most meaningful victories for athletes often have nothing to do with their own careers. Seeing your child find success under pressure in front of thousands of people in the same city that watched you grow up, that hits differently. In that sense, you could argue that what happened on that wrestling mat in Omaha might mean more to Terence Crawford than some of the nights that define his own legacy. For fans of combat sports, and for anyone who pays attention to sporting royalty and legacy, this is a chapter worth paying attention to. Not because it guarantees anything about the future, but because it shows a side of a champion we don't always get to see. Terence Crawford Jr. climbed the podium as a Class A 106-pound state champion. His father watched in the stands, not as the star of the show, but as a proud, emotional dad. In a career where Terence Crawford Sr. has spent years knocking opponents down and collecting belts, it's strangely fitting that one of his most powerful moments came when he wasn't the one competing at all. It was his son's hand being raised, his son's name being announced, and his son wearing the gold. And even in a world that measures greatness in titles and undefeated records, that kind of moment is priceless. So while the boxing world waits to see what Terence Crawford does next in the ring, Nebraska has already seen what the next generation of the Crawford family can do on the mat. A freshman, Class A 106 pounds, a 13-1 win in the state final, and a father in the stands, looking every bit as overwhelmed and proud as any parent you'll ever see, world titles or not.